Cricket South Africa winning the first test by an innings and 63 runs must have been something that gave them great confidence, as Dean Elgar said, and some of the other players too. But it mustn't be looked over. I think something that we must discuss over here, because I think a lot of South African fans might be in two minds about this. Some might be really confident and really happy about this result. Some would have still picked up on some mistakes in the games, etc., that we can obviously iron out and talk about. A lot of guys I've seen on social media that have commented on our posts and our reports have mentioned that no, it was individuals that won this game, not necessarily a team. But we're going to be having a full panel on tonight to discuss all of this. We're also going to get the West Indian angle as well, because we've got Ravi Reddy on the show today, who's also a Proteas fan as well as a West Indies fan. But from the Caribbean Podcast as well, we've got Machel. So we're going to have a great show for you today, a great panel, guys that you're used to. And I'm looking forward to this chat. And it's something that I want you guys to get involved with. So get involved right now. Go and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Obviously, click that notification bell. Smash that like button. Get involved in the comment section. And let's get this conversation going. Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. It's your review show. I'm your host, Khalid. I'm here with a full panel tonight. We're going to be discussing the game between South Africa and the West Indies, the first test. Something that a lot of us might be excited about. Some of us might not be so excited about this conversation, but I think it's a learning curve for all of us, because I think it was a game that told and showed a lot of fight. It showed a lot of differences in our games. It showed some of our weaknesses. It shows where we can improve. So I think that both the West Indies and South Africa are currently in, I would put us in a similar boat with regards to our transition, trying to find a team, trying to find the balance. I think maybe West Indies are a little bit behind South Africa with regards to finding that seniority in the team and getting those guys to step up, obviously, consistently. Like South Africa got, I think, the individual performances with the bat actually were the reason why South Africa, I think that's where we tipped it, because I think the West Indies showed excellent grit with the ball. But this is not necessarily for me to talk about. I want to get Machel's view on this first and foremost. I want to hear what you have to say about this performance. You were very open and honest in the preview, giving your result of what you thought was going to happen. But I would like your view on the West Indies and where you think it went wrong and where do you think you can improve for the next test.
I mean, where do you start, man? Okay, do you know what? For those who are listening who may follow, obviously, our handles and whatnot, I'm going to first and foremost admit that I said it would be 1-1. So all is not lost. I'm still looking out for the second test to see if we can mount a comeback. But to be honest, from a West Indian perspective, there's so many things to look at. The match was lost in the first innings. It was over then. Even when South Africa went into day two on 120 odd for 4, the game was still over as far as I was concerned. It was just about what kind of individual highlights will there be. So things like Jaden Seals, Holder took 4. Obviously, Roston got his 60 odd. I tweeted, I can't remember if it was this morning, and I'm going to stand by this. I said this morning that South Africa's batting is nothing special. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's anything special. But the bowling unit, if they fire, they are as good as any bowling unit in international cricket. And where we suffered is that there were certainly wickets we gave away. I could Holder letting one just roll straight on. Lots of poor judgment Mayer's poor shot. But take those incidents away. The reality of the matter is, as far as I can see, is that the three pacers didn't give up any loose deliveries. And we could have been England in that situation. And probably the story would have been the exact same thing. Because if you have a bowling attack that doesn't give up any freebies, there was no one to attack. There wasn't one weak bowler in the South African unit where you could go, right, that's where we're going to cash in. And yes, that's a lot to speak about the West Indian inability to deal with high quality pace. But again, I want to give South Africa credit, because when we went to New Zealand, we were able to put scores up in New Zealand above 250. But I think we put up one above 300, one above 280, whatever it might be. And that's in Kiwi conditions. So I think as much as people are rightly rushing to criticise the West Indies batting, I think you also have to weigh it up with just how good the South African attack was. And I think if that's not appreciated, then I think it's almost, from a South African perspective, it's almost taken for granted what they actually did. That was as good as it gets for me as at the international level in terms of consistency from a bowling unit. But I'd love to hear all of your views, but that's how I'd kind of break it down initially.
Yeah, because let me just touch on your batting, because I mean, it's something that I've been doing so many podcasts and so many streams about what South Africa can learn from other teams, what South Africa can learn from England, what South Africa can learn from New Zealand, India. I mean, how many streams, guys, you can all tell me, Aditya, Paul, Ravi, how many streams have we done that? Because South Africa's in that phase right now where we're trying to find a solid batting unit. We gave two debutants an opportunity. They showed, KP showed slight signs of what he's capable of maybe and what his approach is. And then they gave their wickets away particularly Calvarena gave his wicket away cheaply. And already we can see there's a lot of fans that will be calling for his head and saying he must be chucked to the wayside and leave him and go to the next guy. Maybe it's not the right time for him and Temba must come back straight back. Now people are saying, oh, Temba needs to come straight back into the team again and Cal needs to wait. So it's up and down constantly with our fan base at the moment to try and find that top 6 and 7, because I bet you that every single person, if they had a free reign to pick whoever they wanted, will pick 6 different names on that sheet. West Indies went with a lot shorter squad, a much smaller squad than South Africa. So you guys obviously, I'm taking it from, I'm going to obviously assume that that's because you guys feel that those are, you've got your batting lineup to an extent, you know who you want to trust and put trust in them. I want to ask you about that. Where do you think your batsmen can improve? Now, I know that South Africa bowled well, and I think that they were very consistent. And I think Langeveld should be getting a lot of credit for that, because he's added something to Lungi's game and Andrich's game that we haven't seen in the domestic setups when they were playing before. I think the way Langeveld has worked with Lungi, I think, is particularly because Lungi's consistency a lot better than it was when I've seen him in previous games before. But from your perspective, from the West Indian perspective, I mean, how do you turn this batting lineup around? What sort of advice would you give him if you were the batting coach, for example, or the coach of the West Indies?
I think, you know what, first and foremost, and you're right, Khalid, by the way, to point out that this is the squad they're going to go with. Because I think Ravi and I were talking on Twitter earlier on, and there isn't the only other batsman who's in the 17 is Darren Bravo. So the idea that they're going to ship out a whole lot of batsmen and bring anybody else in, that's just not going to happen, because there isn't, and we don't have a domestic competition to really pick anybody from. So they're going to go with this squad. Now, what I would implore all the batsmen to do, and Craig Brathwaite spoke about it in the post-match press conference, where he said everyone's just got to go back and stick to their plans. Now, yes, it was probably a bit of a wake-up call to see just what high-quality pace looks like, but they should all take a lesson from Roston Chase. Roston Chase played compact. He played every single ball on its merit and gutted it out. And one thing I think we do need to add as well, there was only 3 scores above 50 in the entire match. So this wasn't an easy deck to bat on. We can talk about, and that's why I think I said that Quinton's knock was so good, because everybody else was struggling. Anyone who did anything remotely well had to grit it out. And I think Craig made reference, they're going to play on the track, which is just next to this one. And he says he expects it to play similar. So the idea that we're not going to face another pace barrage from the South Africans. I already have to assume that's what we're going to face. So every player has got to go back to basics. And the one thing that I want to see eliminated in the second test is there is under no circumstances should a batsman be giving it away. And there were a few too many, probably because they were unsettled by the consistent pace, who just gave it away. But last thing I just want to say, the other thing, though, that I think people have to remember is it wasn't pace for the sake of pace. It was accurate. It was accurate pace bowling. And even, in fact, Nortje, I thought he was down on pace, but it was the accuracy that was. Yeah. It was the nagging, accurate line that got to the batsman. He outthought the bowlers more than it just being about pace for the sake of pace bowling. So I think we should recognise that as well.
Guys, and before we go any further, after that great analysis from Machel, I just want you guys to go ahead and follow them on Twitter, of course, Carib Cricket, as well as on Instagram. Please go give them a follow, of course. All of you guys, we want to build a community, of course, over here with regards to Cricket Podcast all around. Ravi, I'm going to get you to chip in over here because I know that you also a West Indies fan, and this last night of even though it's like your heart is split in, let me say 3/4. So like the 3 of them. So I mean, 2/3 of that is obviously joy for South Africa, but I'm sure part of it was aching. So just give me some insight into that heartbreak, kid.
Oh man, it brings back very splendid memories. You know, I'll be like, back in the day, I'll be like, no, Makaya, cool it, bro. You know, Brian is batting beautifully. Don't get the guy out, you know. And this is quite sad because I was expecting it to go the distance. So obviously, as Mash quite rightfully put it, at 96 is very difficult to come back from that first innings display, unfortunately, from the Windies. So definitely from an application point of view, I felt that very few of them actually came to the party in that instance. I think there were some good starts from Blackwood. Mayer looked good on a couple of occasions, but then started slashing at a few. But then it comes back to the bowling display as well. I think there were hardly any bad balls from the Proteas bowling attack, which is great. I think Langers should be credited for that. As much as the bowlers themselves. If it looked to me as though Andrich was much quicker, much fitter, much leaner. He looked like a wrecking machine. He looked unstoppable. Lungi as well. These guys look like a completely different version from the way they were playing against Sri Lanka at the end of last year. Roston, absolutely superb. I've been following Carib Cricket's podcast where they spoke about Roston being dropped to get some batting form, and it certainly showed. It certainly was the case in the second innings. Roston Chase came to the party in a big way with the bat, and I agree. He played every single ball on his merit. You know, I think one of the partnerships he formed with Jermaine Blackwood, and Blackwood was looking great in the second innings. It seemed that the Proteas were bowling to a plan, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but when Blackwood actually went out. I think it was between Keshav and Rassi. They had a bit of a discussion where somebody needed to go into sort of a short cover point where they were like, he was literally about, I would say, 10 meters from where the shot was being played. And then basically the guy went for the drive. Blackwood, in this case, went for the drive, and he just straight into Rassi's hands. And what I liked about that is that for the first time in a long time, we saw the Proteas actually bowling to a plan. The guys actually talking to each other, not just captain to bowl in this instance. It's the other guys in the periphery as well, which is great to see. So big up to QDK and Rassi. Fantastic batting from them. They really took the bull by the horns and really got them over the line. Quinton was superb. You could actually see that the burden of captaincy, without it being on his shoulders, he was able to express himself freely. And certainly took the bowlers to task. And then on the other hand, we saw quite a few debutants, certainly one from the West Indies in this instance. We saw Jaden Seals make his debut. I believe he's 18 or 19 years old, from Trinidad, my home country, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And he bowled beautifully. I thought he bowled quite well, considering it was his first international taste of international test cricket. He bowled exceptionally well, and I think he's certainly a prospect for the long run. It's very difficult to uproot guys that have played quite well, like Alzari Joseph. for him to come in place of Alzadi. I thought that was incredible. And he certainly delivered, in my opinion. And my last point was obviously, there was a point I made much earlier, that SA clearly bowled to a plan, and I think we'll certainly see more of that in the next test. I just hope from a West Indies point of view, there's a little bit more application, a little bit more, how do I put the circumspect shots. At the same token, you want the guys to play to their strengths as well. I saw some beautiful batting from Kyle Mayers as well, some very calypso style back foot cover drives, which is great. I always enjoy watching that. But obviously, if you're 40 for 4, you want to tell them to just cool off on that a little bit. But let's just see what happens in the second test. I'm hoping for a bit of a comeback, much like Mash. I also said 1-1. So unfortunately, guys, but I've never been a gambling person, but I'm willing to bet on this 1-1 comeback from the Windies. We'll have to see on that one, but let's just hope for the best for any of the Windies fans that are watching tonight.
Seals must get a shout out from all of us. I think he played excellently. I really was impressed by him, and I really enjoyed watching him play. Let's go on to South Africa, because I think our points might be able to give some insight as well to Machel, so that he can maybe see from our perspective what we think about the particular game from a South African perspective, and maybe to an extent see how harsh we can be on our players, because this might be happening currently. I don't know. The comment section is obviously as live as possible for you to be able to see that. But let's go with Aditya. Aditya, you went to the press conferences. Now, let's start with the analysis from the press conferences, especially obviously KG spoke after his 5-4. There's obviously Dean Elgar that I had a chat today that we put up his piece as well. You would have had some of the guys, obviously, Quinton de Kock spoke in his press conference after he scored that century. Give us kind of an overview of the lessons that you learned that have been consistent amongst all of them, because I think there were some lessons that we could pull out of all of their press conferences and kind of combined it into one holistic view of how South Africa played.
Yeah, so generally the plan was for South Africa to be as clinical as possible in their execution. And it helped that they were bowling first. And, Lungi said in his first press conference that they were trying to, hunt as a pack. So in that, obviously, Lungi and Andrik Nokia were amongst the wickets. And KG's work went unrecognized. But KG was still in good form, and what he did in the first innings essentially paid off in the second, because he sort of got a sense of what he really should be bowling like. And everyone sort of universally recognized that this is a tough wicket to bat on, and it's going to take a lot of grit and application to be able to post a decent score on this wicket. So obviously all the bowlers and Dean Elgar were complimenting Aiden Markram's effort. He scored a brilliant 60, and he probably faced the worst of those conditions up front, with the new ball in hand and opening the innings for South Africa. And also Rassie van der Dussen. He got a bit of criticism for his strike rate, but he was recognized to be among those key factors in the batting lineup that really kept South Africa going and was instrumental to them ultimately scoring 300 plus, because that middle over phase was quite tricky. They finished the day at 128 for 4, and although South Africa was in the driver's seat, the batting innings could have fallen apart very quickly had Rassie not taken that amount of time to bat. And then, of course, Quinton de Kock was outstanding. Absolute masterclass in tough conditions, and he really took it home for the Proteas. He played an unbelievable knock. So yeah, I think it was one of those games for the Proteas where everything really came together well. But then, as Dean Elgar said, one test match victory is not good enough. It needs to be repeated on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and I second that. I think Aiden, What I love about, I mean, I've been back in Aiden for a long time. I've been wanting to see him in the test setup since 2016 already. I was talking about him being in the test setup already. But what I appreciate about his knock particularly is how far he's come. He's in a period of his career where there was a lot of scrutiny coming his way, where people were complaining about the way he was losing his wicket, and that he wasn't being patient enough with him, or cautious enough with his wicket, or savouring his wicket enough in Test cricket. We see him kind of do that in ODI cricket, giving his wickets away easily when he's in. I think in Test cricket, he's kind of mastered that threshold to be able to sit and be patient and know when to attack and when not to. Yes, okay, a couple of great deliveries beat the bat, and I think that was just naturally the order of the day. I don't think those things needed to be taken to your head as a batsman. And I think some new batsmen in Test cricket, if they get beaten like that, it could actually affect them mentally, and it can change their whole approach to the game. Whereas Aiden, I think at the beginning of his career, that was happening to him, especially when he went to India. It was a tough subcontinent tour for him, Sri Lanka and India. That was probably, I mean, I remember speaking to him after those tours, and he was really, really, really in a space, in a frame of mind where he was like, he doesn't understand. He understood his game, and he knew what he was capable of, and it was just about ironing out those flaws in his game, and maybe being a little bit more technically sound and understanding his game in specific conditions. So I think it is really maturing as a batsman when it comes to that, because we know Aiden as this free-flowing cricketer that can smack massive hundreds. We see it domestic cricket all the time. But that other side of the game where he can grit out of innings as well, I think he's learning a lot from Dean Alga with regards to that. I think they must be having great conversations about that. Rassie van der Dussen is what I'm going to say it again. He's a guy that we needed in that middle order because South Africa was struggling to find someone that can replace the likes of AAB and Faf when we knew Faf was going to leave at some point, replacing Faf, replacing Amla, replacing Dumini. There's so many of those guys, those top-class guys in the middle order that we lost. And we needed some sort of stability with the right mentality. And just the way Rassie van der Dussen is as a person, we saw him when he knelt as well at the beginning. He's kneeling at the beginning of the game. He's understanding and he's buying into the South African culture, which is also very important for the next generation of superstars that come through. And Paul, you know Rassie very well from that perspective, being a Lions supporter as well. I just want to get your points. South Africa, where they went right, obviously we know their bowling was excellent, and we know that they've really tightened that up. As a unit, they're looking stronger and more lethal. But the batting still worries me. Even though we won the game, and even though we got a century from Quinton de Kock, and even though we got a 60 and a 40 from Aiden and Rassie respectively, I still am worried about our batting and certain elements of it.
Look, I think for me, this game was just all about the bowlers and how well you bowled, and both teams bowled well. Well, South Africa bowled well entirely throughout their bowling innings. I like Dean Alga made all the right calls. Yeah, the one call where he brought Keshav on after 10 overs when KG and Lungi couldn't get wickets. That point in time, I kind of felt it was advantage West Indies. We're going to probably be in for a long day. And then somehow the plan, as Machel says, the plan of playing leg side of the ball just went away, and all of a sudden off stumps were being exposed and people were now opening up the offside and getting nicked off. A lot of the wickets were behind the stumps for the entire game, South Africa, and which shows that it's English conditions. In English conditions, you need to wear the bowlers down, force them to bowl a lot straighter. That comes with your straight up shots, opening up the leg side. That's how you score runs on this pitch. Aiden Markram showed that, and then somehow he kind of went back to old Aiden where we thought maybe was a centurion, nicks off. Rassie van der Dussen, same thing. Did so well to get himself in leg side, one outside the off stump, nicks off. And that was the tail of the game. I think the West Indies did a little bit in shorter spurts, but South Africa, the problem, I'm happy with this win. The only problem is, does this teach you anything about winning test matches? No, it doesn't. What you need is to learn how to win the tighter matches. Had West Indies put 200 on the board, I think we'd be sitting here still having a test match going on, hoping that South Africa eke out some sort of runs towards the end to win you the game and having someone step up. And from that perspective, I think South Africa have those game breakers to be able to do that, like Quinton de Kock, like Aiden Markram, and the like in that batting card. But the one thing I think we need to work on from a batting perspective is, why is everyone taking guard on off stump? That's number one. Keegan Peterson, Cal Verena, all on off stump. Heads were going the other way when they were getting nicked off. That needs to change. You need to get back to middle stump. You need to play the channels, which is something Aiden worked on, and that's what he improved on. Aiden couldn't play the ball straight. He always played leg side of it and he missed it. So that's something that he's brought into his game, and he's done really, really well. And he batted so well in this game. I just obviously we all want him to get 3 figures. But I think from a South African perspective, what we need to figure out is, how do we win the tighter contests when the test match gets tight? And they did that really well from a batting perspective, especially with the partnerships. So, for instance, if you look at the partnership between Rassie and Aiden, that was so crucial. Very, very crucial. The partnership between Rassie and Quinton, incredible. I remember on Friday I spoke about how if Quinton and Rassie can survive the first session, South Africa effectively are going to win the game. And yes, Rassie went out in the first session. However, Vian Mulder, partnering with Rassie, with Quinton, took South Africa there. Anouk Nokia's, I don't know how many runs he scored. I think he scored 2, but he blocked everything. And that was just unbelievable, because it helped Quinton de Kock clear his mind, play a certain way, and beat down a West Indies attack that I think is missing a fourth seamer. I think West Indies should drop one of their all-rounders, bring in a fourth seamer. Alzari, because the problem was with South Africa was, once KG and Lungi were done, Anrich came in, and Vian Mulder, who's swinging the ball outside off, came in. It wasn't easy. As Machel says, there's no one you can hit off. Yes, you can try take on Vian, but the problem, the whole nature of Test match cricket is wearing bowlers down, allowing the team to bring you their second change bowlers, their third change bowlers, and the problem is Craig Brathwaite had no options. After South Africa, Aiden wore them down. Carl Mayers came on, Roston Chase came on, and that's when the game was won, because there was nobody else coming in. And if an Alzari Joseph comes in, it makes it a little bit more of a tighter contest, because you still have that pressure going on for at least the first 20 overs. And then you can then figure out what you need to do. And I think if anybody is looking at on Friday, you need to try and survive the first 20 overs of the Duke. If you can do that, you can win the game. As for your team, and I think that's the thing that's been missed. But South Africa, I'm happy we've won. That's a tick. Now, with West Indies coming back in a tighter contest, what are you going to do now? How are you going to win those games? And this is where Dean Alger's captaincy is going to be truly tested. He's made the right decisions in the first test. Now let's see in the second test. The slip catcher, guys, I've never seen slip catching like that in a while. It was like Jacques Callis, Graham Smith, and A.B. de Villiers with Quinton with it was just unbelievable. I was critical of Vian Mulder in the slips, but I know he has outperformed everybody. But yeah, it starts with the bowling, and the bowling went well. I think a lot of people are saying Lungi's bowling slower. I think with the Duke ball, it's much better. I'd rather guys bowl a lot slower with it so they can control it. And that's what happened with these guys. They were controlling that ball so well. I think Vian struggled with it at the beginning, but then he got the hang of it in the second innings. But I don't mind Lungi bowling 135 with the Duke's ball. If it's a Kookaburra, I'd like for him to crank it up, but I'd want more control from my opening bowlers, which KG and Lungi give you, and then Anna can come in and try and break partnerships with his sheer pace if things aren't going well, and it worked to a T. So I'm happy with them. It's just going to be quite interesting to see what team comes out on Friday.
Mm-hmm. I just want to give a quick comment to Bevan, one of our loyal fans. He's been here from the beginning. Bevan, I don't think anybody has an agenda against Aiden, because I think everybody would put Aiden in like number one on the team, one of the first people on the team sheet. I think Aiden deserves a long chance. Even if it drops in form, I think they need to stick with him right through, and they need to push with him, because I think he's our future. He's definitely our future. I think when Dean drops out it's about who's going to partner Aiden. And that's the only conversation that should be had, because I think that's the main conversation that should be had, because Aiden is unbelievably talented. And me and Aiden have okay, I don't even want to say that, but I mean, when back in the day when I started writing, etc., I think Aiden was the first feature I ever wrote in my life, and I picked up so many characters in Aiden that I just had a hunch that he was going to be an amazing player in a Protea one day, just by his attitude. And what I love the most about Aiden, whenever I have a conversation with him or whenever I see him in person, the first thing he asks is, how are other players doing? Have I chatted to this person? Have I chatted to that person? How are they doing? How's their careers going? How are they feeling? Are they feeling confident? That's always his conversation that he has. And that's the one quality that I think that you can't really teach someone. It's a care for knowing who's coming up underneath him, so that they know that if they need support, if they need a hunch, if he needs to send them a message or give them that inspiration, that's also very, very important. I'm going to go back to Machel over here, because I want to ask you what you've learned from, as an opposition, obviously supporting the West Indies, looking at it from the other end. What sort of lessons did you learn from South Africa in this particular test?
Firstly, I just want to echo exactly what you said. From a West Indian perspective, I can't even believe there's question marks about Aiden. To me, he's the classiest batsman in the side, and that's just obvious. You just have to watch him just watch him. Yep. And I would say for all West Indian fans, just watch him. You can tell when a batsman is class. I'm not saying he's the best. I think when Quinton, as he showed in that first test, when he's on song, Quinton can do whatever he wants, literally as he showed. But Aiden, in terms of classical cricketer, come on, that's not even a question. I'd love him to be in the West Indies team. That's not even a question mark. But the thing that I learned, I think the thing I learned from South Africa and how this impacts West Indies going forward, firstly, is I do wonder, and I'm talking about behind the scenes with the brain trust with South Africa, and I'm talking the Graham Smiths, I'm talking the Bouchers, etc., Langerfeld, etc. I wonder how much South Africa was smarting from falling below us in the rankings, and how much that has galvanized them to perform like this. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I thought they were going to be rubbish. I thought.
Look, we all thought they were going to be rubbish too. We all thought they were going to be rubbish too.
And the reason why is because from a West Indian perspective, looking into South African cricket, what I saw was turmoil's going on. The teams at a low ebb. They're at such a low ebb that even we've gone above you in the rankings. So I just naturally assumed this team doesn't know its own direction right now. But I just wonder how much behind the scenes has this been about. This tour is where we start again. And I just reckon we are getting the brunt. If that's what's happened, and that's my gut feeling, I could be wrong. You lot would know more than I would. But I just wonder if this is the tour where it's like, no, this is where our resurgence starts. Because South Africa were ruthless. They were absolutely ruthless in that first test. So in terms of what I learned as a West Indian is I'd love to have some of that ruthless aggression in the second test. But I think I'm trying to remember who said it. I think it was you. I can't remember who said it now. But we were once pacer light. Now I am not blaming the team for this. I think we deliberately went in with Roston as a batsman because we were afraid of South Africa's bowling. But as is so often the case in these instances, when you're afraid of what another side can do and you overcompensate, you make your side weaker in another suit. And we were a seam bowler light for 100%. So a lot for me, a lot for me depends on Shannon Gabriel's fitness. I think he would have made a big difference on that track. Because he would have been the fastest. In fact, I reckon he would have been the fastest bowler in the match if he'd played. If Shannon is fit, a batsman has to be dropped. But even if he's not, a batsman has to be dropped for Alzari Joseph. There has to be another seaman. Almost, that definitely has to happen, because the other way to make batsmen accept that they need to come to the party is to not have another batsman there as an insurance policy. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Mhm.
And throughout that whole first and second innings, even I did it as a fan. I was like, oh, don't worry, Jason's coming in. Oh, don't worry, Josh De Silva's coming in. Oh, don't worry, Raheem Gordon's coming in. Assuming that everybody who can actually hold the bat would do something. But actually, I just wonder how much of a negative impact that has on the players who should be batting according to their position if they know there is someone beneath them who technically could save the innings. And the reality is nobody saved the innings. So I'd definitely be taking the batsman out for a seam bowler in the second test. But most importantly of all, in terms of what I learned from South Africa, two things overall. Three things. One, catches with matches. South Africa didn't put anything down. I think even Quinton, we put Quinton down on 80. Let's not forget. I think Carl Mayer's missed. I swear he was on 80 or something like that. Carl Mayer's missed one running in. Catches with matches, and South Africa held everything from what I can remember. The bowlers bowled as a pack, and that was clear. Even when Keshav came in, there was a point to him coming on when he came on. And then thirdly, as much as there weren't that many scores above 50, Rassie dug it out. Don't underestimate that 44 that he got. Sometimes it's about the context of the situation you're playing rather than the score that you get. And he played, I don't know how many balls he played, but him digging it out was crucial. So Rassie's 40, Aiden's 60, dug it out. Obviously, Quinton, we don't need to talk about. Even Nortes 7 off 44 dot balls or whatever it was, whilst Quinton went wild. The batsmen played the situation they needed to play, if that makes any sense. As a South African, I do think there's a few question marks I'd have over Kyle. I'm putting it back on you now. I don't know if Kyle goes if Temba's fit. Peterson looked good, but I just wonder if he didn't. I don't think he played the situation as it goes. I thought he tried to play his natural game, whatever that is, and I don't know him as a cricketer, but to me it came across like he was trying to play his natural game, and that wasn't the pitch to be playing your natural game. That was a pitch where you had to grit it out and see the book and get yourself in first. But yeah, that's kind of what I saw as from a West Indian perspective.
It's just great to hear someone else say it, man. You know, like the praises that because I mean, from my perspective, I mean, look at Keegan Peterson is a type like Machel. I've watched Keegan for quite some. I think a lot of us have all watched Keegan and been calling for him, but that surprised me because I thought at that point when he came in, I thought this was a situation for Keegan. I thought this was a pitch for Keegan. I thought there was a perfect situation for Keegan in my eyes at first. I thought he's going to grit it out. I thought he's going to play that type of game. But I think that I don't know.
That ball was swinging. That ball was moving. I'm sorry. I've watched Keegan Peterson handle Jimmy Anderson here in South Africa with the Kookaburra, but that ball that was used over the weekend, it was just unbelievable. Like I, because you got a glimpse of the type of batsman Keegan is, but then you kind of also felt that with a swinging ball, there's always one with your name on it because your defenses are always tested all the time. And I think Keegan just fell into the trap. It's his first game. Obviously, he came in because
very
after 5 balls. And him and Aiden were at that point were trying to adjust to what they needed to do because there's no one in the West Indies showed them what they needed to do. And that's the other sucky part about bowling a team out for 97. You can't go back into the changing room and say, okay, guys, look at so-and-so and how they batted. But there was the first turnovers of the game was a kind of an indication of where Keegan needed to play. But if you take the offside game outside of Keegan and Aiden's game, it makes it very hard to bat. As South Africans, naturally, because we are very offside dominant based on the way our pitches are and the bounce and everything else that happens in South Africa. When you take that away, it's only the class batsmen who have the ability to be like, okay, fine, we'll just go leg side. Quinny did it well. Rassie had to wait through a lot of balls to do that, which is uncharacteristic of him normally. And Aiden did it well. And those are the 3 guys who should be the anchors of our batting lineup. Keegan will get better. It was his first time in West Indian conditions, and so I think it's about giving him a chance. It just was weird. It was just tough because the ball was swinging so much, and it's going to continue to swing throughout this Test series as to how whoever the batting coach is, if it's Mark Batch, if it's Enoch, what adjustments they need to do to help Keegan, if Kyle plays in place of Temba, Kyle, and even Dean Alger, to try and get them to be playing on the offside, because Dean's release shot's the cover drive. He's not going to get that this time. Kyle's release shot is the cover drive. So too is Keegan. They're not going to get that. They can't, because that's a risky shot. So it's about adjusting to that and allowing the bowlers to keep on coming straighter and straighter and straighter. It's frustrating, but that's how you're going to. That's whoever does it well will win the test match.
Mm-hmm. Aditya, I want to ask you. It might be a little bit of a difficult question, but I'm going to ask you two questions. I'm going to first start with: were there some lessons that we can maybe take from the West Indies? Maybe even if it's the slightest one, even maybe incorrect decisions they've made, or whatever the case may be. What can South Africa learn to take their game forward? But the second question I want you to ask directly after that is: what changes will you make for the next test? And then we can go to Umpo, Ravi, and then end off from Machel on that question.
2 points really stood out to me through the course of this conversation. I'm just going to reiterate, which I think Umpo said, that a lot of batsmen were just taking guard off stump. And to me, I think South Africa won this game, and quite convincingly. But I still feel like mentally the team struggles with finding that balance between attacking and defense. What an off-stump guard tells me is that you're looking to score, but you're not exactly comfortable with the pressures that come with leaving the ball, because that's an important part of the game in swinging conditions. That's assigned to the bowler, and you look technically when you do that, you end up playing. You are vulnerable to the LBW, because it means that anything around the middle and leg stump, you're going to play across the line. So I don't know what the reasoning is behind that, but I feel like that's not exactly the strategy that I would employ. With the West Indies, one thing that I find is interesting is that it's obviously the extra pace of KG and Andrick that probably rattled them a little bit, because if you look last year, they were perfectly comfortable facing Broad, Anderson and Co in England, and the bowlers in New Zealand. So I suppose there are some technical adjustments to make, and I'm sure South Africa will learn a little bit from there as well, because Jaden Seals is only going to get better, and as Machel said, if Azari Joseph comes into the mix, then it's going to be slightly more challenging, because here the release for the team was the fact that they had spinners in there, and it's quite likely they're not going to have that in the second test match.
It's actually a good sign from Seal's perspective, I think, Machel, for you guys, is that the way he read the way South Africa bowled, and he almost mimicked it. And I thought that was an excellent sign from a youngster early on, that he could do that so quickly into an international career. Before we get into the second question I asked, I just want to shake up the stream quickly, because this obviously, these guys, this guy particularly, just likes to shake up and make appearances.
The whitewash kings. The whitewash kings. Come on, England.
Get onto the bench.
Now suddenly his England flag is flying high because they beat Croatia 1-0, man. So now suddenly he watches soccer only when they win.
Oh, so you didn't watch the test? There was a test match today. There was one today.
You're very soft, bro. I don't know if your mic is but soft.
He's pulling off a Gareth Southgate there.
Now you're in mute.
Is that better, boys?
Wow, well done.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. There
the first thing England did right. Well, okay, let's go.
Molly Stone. Molly Stone, fantastic. Yet again, 10 wickets, I believe, boys, averaging less than 20. Did say he was good, didn't I? I did say he was good, but again, I don't want to disrupt the flow of tonight's show. I do apologise, but yeah, Aditya did make some great points there, I must admit. And he wanted me on the show tonight, so thank Aditya for this.
It was lovely to have you, bro.
Same here. It's nice to see Machel on as well, of course, my boy. Right.
Aaron, what
Yeah,
happened?
so-
What do you mean? What happened? With what?
Over the
World Class
weekend,
England.
what? You guys got whitewashed. Like, talk about that. Tell us how it feels.
I have no issue. Well, I say I have no issue with it. I do in a way, but we should have played a spinner. That's the first things first. If I was in charge, Jack Leach would have been in that team. Ollie Stone would have been in a straight swap for Mark Wood. But at the end of the day, I mean, we can talk about England until the cows come home, boys. The fact is New Zealand are a better team. They are the number one ranked side now. They're far better than England. And you look at that top seven. Khalid, you mentioned the question to Aditya about what South Africa can learn from the West Indies. What about what every other team on this planet right now can learn from New Zealand? Look how technically astute and assured that top seven is at the crease. In arguably the most difficult batting additions on the entire planet against the likes of Jimmy Anderson, against the likes of Stuart Broad, who was impeccable in this test match, Mark Wood, and then arguably the greatest seamer of this entire generation, Oliver Stone, and they applied themselves absolutely sensationally. So the fact
Machel
is,
doesn't know.
Why did you
Machel doesn't
bring him
know that Ollie Stone's name is actually Ollie Pebble on this channel. You can't be going
Yes.
from Ollie Stone.
Well, he bowled like a pebble. He only got 3 wickets in this match.
only
So,
3
like,
wickets against the number one side, including Ross Taylor, who's an absolute legend of New Zealand cricket. But I digress. Again, New Zealand absolutely sensational. Devon Conway. I mean, we could make the joke here, boys. Before that 4th innings was averaging 137, and now he's only averaging 76.5. It's ludicrous, isn't it? He is a ridiculous talent.
He's
Until
built
Ollie
out of
Stone-
some stern stuff. Some very, very proper stuff there. Devon Conway, what a man.
I agree.
Until
I agree
Ollie
with both.
Stone takes the top batsman's wicket from every single nation that he's played against, then you can compare him to Andy Nokia, okay?
Hang
Virat
on.
Kohli, he's taken every single
Hang
big
on.
wicket in every single team that he's played against. So just
Hang
remember that.
He took the wicket of Shubman Gill, and I'll never forget this, at 3:03 a.m. here in England. And I pretty much woke up my entire neighbourhood. Okay? This boy
Shubman
takes
Gill.
big wickets.
Not Virat Kohli,
Hang on. That's a bit offensive to Shubman Gill. Shubman Gill, future
but
superstar.
not
by the
Virat
way.
Kohli. I love Gil, but not Virat Kohli.
Gil is
I
quality.
I
He
just
is
want to
pretty
get.
good.
I want to get. I love Gil. He's an amazing player.
Yes.
I'm just obviously this. I'm going on with Aaron because we don't get him on the stream a lot these days. He's always busy with his Instagram lives, which I chip in now and again. I think I've supported him in the last week on Instagram live more than he supported us on this channel. I'm just,
Boys, come on.
look here. Okay, Aaron, I got to see this question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to England, there was some chat, and I want Machel to weigh in here as well. Particularly Nasser Hussain after the game, and it's something that I've been talking to you guys about for quite some time. You've written some pieces on it. We were comparing county cricket to the other leagues in the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We were comparing South Africans' domestic cricket to the county system, and obviously, but Nasser Hussain was quite critical of the county system actually after this particular after this match. And I just want you guys to weigh in on that maybe. And Machel, if you want to chip in here, you can as well after Aaron. But what are your thoughts of his comments? What do you think of what he had to say?
Well, it's a difficult one. And before we talk about county cricket, and yes, there are unfortunately some fallacies with the current setup, I wanted to touch upon a point that Aditya made actually with regards to standing outside off stump, because this was something which Nasser mentioned a lot in that post-match interview. It was the fact that a lot of players are almost reinventing batting technique. And we do see it a lot nowadays. We see so many of the world's best batsmen batting outside off. Myself at number 9 tried it over the weekend, hit a 4 first ball, got out next ball. It doesn't work for me personally, but again, I'm not Virat Kohli or AB de Villiers. At the same time, though, I do notice with a lot of English young batsmen, there is this shift in technique, and no one really knows where it's come from. Potentially, it's because it is difficult to score runs here in England and Wales. And if we have a look, if we go 15 years back, for example, in county cricket, and you look at the number of names who were scoring well over 1,000 plus runs in a season, it would have exceeded double digits. You look at it nowadays, I think in 2019, you've got the leading run scorers, Dom Sibley, a man who is in the England team averaging over 30 and for some reason is under pressure according to some people. But you look at 2019, there is a massive, massive difference. It is becoming a lot harder. Now, you can argue that that is due to pitches. That is a massive contentious point here in England and Wales. Pitch quality, it's been under the microscope this week with New Road, the quality of the pitch for the County Championship and the subsequent Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy matches. You can argue that it's better seam bowling, and you can also argue a lack of application with batting technique. It's a multitude of factors which have created this perfect storm, which has resulted in England getting absolutely hammered by New Zealand. So with regards to the whole, is it county cricket's fault? What we have to remember with county cricket is that for all of its shortcomings, for all of its fallacies, county cricket has produced a World Cup winning side, it's produced a number one test team, and it has produced a number one ranked T20 side, as well as a T20 World Cup winning team as well. So it's very easy to criticise county cricket, but at the end of the day, it also does come down to these batsmen. And sometimes you have to look at it and go, could you have applied yourself better? And on this surface, absolutely. This was not a ridiculously spicy surface at all at Edgbaston. I was there at the ground. It was flat as a pancake. You should have been scoring runs. Look at the ease in which Devon Conway, Tom Latham, Will Young, Ross Taylor applied themselves with, as Empo does a little victory dance. But the fact is, this was England's shortcomings with the bat coming to the forefront. And again, it is easy to blame county cricket. But is it just down to players? Is it down to coaching as well? I mean, this has been another thing. Why are England's coaches not coming to the forefront in interviews and explaining what we're doing to put these next steps into place? It's a load of factors. So for me, I respect Nasser Saint's opinion highly. Of course I do, and he made a lot of sense there. But it is very, very easy to make county cricket the scapegoat. And I hope that people don't do that because we've just lost to the number one ranked team in the world right now.
Aaron, can I get a follow-up on that one?
Indeed.
So obviously you said that obviously there's no coaching. The coaches aren't coming to the fore. They aren't saying much. Is it because you guys have this expanded squad mentality that if somebody fails in a test series, there's always going to be someone because you are, i.e. the Brazil of international cricket, where you've got thousands and thousands of cricketers coming out of God knows where, to end up being beaten by a country that only has 6 teams. They can't even expand, and you got my schoolmate beating you left, right, and center at Edgbaston. So that was a little dig, but yeah. But is it because you guys have so many people that you can just throw in and not necessarily just fix the problem of guys? We're sticking with this core, Sibbers and everyone else in that scorecard, and we're going to try to make it work with them and help change the technique.
Well, it could potentially, Impo. It is a decent point, but with regards to this whole number of teams, 18 counties, as I mentioned, has produced successful teams across all 3 formats. We, as a country, cannot expect every single year, year in, year out, to produce number one teams and World Cup winning teams. It's just simply not achievable. Otherwise, India, for example, look at India's domestic circuit with the Ranji Trophy, the Vijay Hazare, got the Sai Mushtaq Ali Trophy, and then, of course, you have the real crown jewel, which is the IPL. They have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of players in their talent pool, and yet India isn't winning absolutely everything. So don't necessarily think it's just due to the conveyor belt of cricketers that the problem is actually emerging from. I think, again, it probably is just a lack of technique. But again, I can't really explain where that's come from. I don't understand where the root cause of this issue is coming from in county cricket, because, as I said, it's been so pronounced in the past decade or so. You look back to 2010, 2011, 2012, for example, when my county won the county championship. And again, you would have so many players scoring 1,000+ runs. You'd have real elite cricketers to choose from. Just look at the England lineup, for example, with Strauss, Cook, Peterson, Trott, Bell, Collingwood, for example. We don't have that nowadays. But again, is that county cricket's fault? Or is that just the case of we don't have that current crop of players at the moment? We are a team in transition. The fact is, we're currently ranked number 4. And the fact is, if you looked at the chat after this series, you'd think we're ranked bottom of the world. We've just been hammered by a much lesser nation. New Zealand are a better cricket team than England right now, and they deservedly beat England. With better players, with better batting technique, with better application, they are further ahead of the process than England are right now. But what is vital for England after this series defeat, ahead of a massive series against India, is making the right decision. Do we stick with these players or do we not? And that is the big question now for England. Do we stick with the likes of Zach Crawley, for example, who has had that fantastic 267 against Pakistan, but hasn't scored big since then. There's all this talk about Dom Sibley and his lack of technique. I don't understand where this comes from. He's not a pretty and aesthetically pleasing player. Yes, he's averaging 30.85, but at the same time, when Dom Sibley goes big, England win matches. Think Newlands 2020, 133. Think West Indies at Old Trafford in 2020 as well with 120. A match-winning 56 now against Sri Lanka in Gaul and an 87 in the Test win in Chennai. So do England stick with this current crop of players? And I suppose that is the next question. And as I said, it's very easy to point fingers and play the blame game, but New Zealand are just the better team right now. And we just have to accept that and put in the right, methodologies, I suppose, to put us back on the right track in international cricket.
Guys, we have to wrap up now quickly. I just want to get just make it very quick, maybe 1 minute or so. Just the changes that you want to see. Is the same team that you want to see? Or you want some changes in the side? Let's start with Aditya and then go around. Aditya and Paul, Ravi, Cricket Connoisseur, you can give yours, and then Machel can go last.
South Africa, I'd like to stick with the same team. And West Indies, I'd probably like an additional seamer in the lineup.
Paul?
If Timber's fit, Timber comes in, and I'd like to see an extra seamer in that West Indian side. But for me, the big one is getting Timber back into that 11.
Cool. Ravi?
Yeah, Timber back in if he's fit. You all saw the comments in the trail. Quite a few are Timber out already. That's a debate for another day, I guess. But Timber back in if he's fit. The question is who gets the axe between Peterson and Verreynne. Personally, I think it will be Verreynne on the basis of runs. And then from a West Indian point of view, Mash knows this by positioning quite well on this. I'm not that confident in Kieran Powell for many a reason. He's been an inconsistent performer over the years. And I'm concerned. I don't know if not him, who it will be. Will it be Darren Bravo, and did they change the opening lineup? I don't know. But because quite frankly, it is a bit of a concern at the moment if you're a West Indies supporter.
Cool. Aaron?
I just wanted to just quickly ask him, Poe, if Bavuma does come back in, again, are you dropping Verreynne like Ravi would?
Yes.
Okay.
As an injury replacement, Timber's been in that side, unless because it's either you drop him and you tell us he's dropped, then Carl stays and we have the same team. But if Carl's in for an injury, then Timber comes back in as fit as what is fair in international sport.
Okay. Fair enough. And then with regards to the West Indies, Mash, is Shannon Gabriel fit at the moment or not?
It's touch and go at the moment. So I'm going to have two different teams depending on what happens with him.
Is Alzari Joseph in the other one?
I'd have them both actually, but that's not...
Well, go on, Mash. You say your West Indies one. I would definitely bring in Alzari Joseph though. And to be fair, he can add stuff with the bat as well. He's had a fantastic county championship season for Worcestershire as well. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, so what I've got then is I think we had too many batsmen in the side and couldn't even get past 200. So there's no point in going with all those batsmen again. Chase was the best bat. So technically he has to stay in the side. He's earned his place. So what that means is the question marks are around Bonner and Gabriel. If Bonner is injured due to concussion, and I reckon that because of concussion protocol, he shouldn't play anyway, then Bonner's out. I would drop Cornwall. I want to keep Cornwall, but for the balance of the team, he's got to go. Because if Roston Chase stays in, you just ask Roston to bowl some off spin. So Bonner goes because of concussion. Cornwall goes because you only need one spinner. And then the replacements would be Joseph and Gabriel. And I think West Indies go in with Seals, Roach, Gabriel, Joseph, and Holder. You've got to go pace for pace at this stage. We were pacers light, and I think the only way to play themselves into this match is to go after the South African batting lineup. So that even if we falter again, at least with 5 pacers in, South Africa might falter as well. That I think that's the only way we stay in the match this time.
Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, everybody. Thanks a lot, Machel, for coming on the show as well. Go follow them, please. Carib Cricket on Instagram and on Twitter and all the social media platforms. Is there any other shout out you want to give, Machel, before you go?
Nah, just shout out you guys, loving the link up, everyone who's locked in. I've seen a couple of the Carib Cricket fan base that we've got locked in here. So everyone keep locking in. We got another test, and then we got 5 T20s. So none of us are going away anytime soon.
That's when we hide. Okay, so guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please smash that like button, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell for all future videos. And we'll see you again for another video. We'll be doing a preview show, obviously, for the next test very, very soon. So take care and enjoy your week.